The Air Canada strike has been a significant event and will have measurable impact on all Canadians going forward. And even if you aren't in a union, this is important to you. I'm going to explain why. I'm Steve Sandford. You're watching Dominion Report. So, a tentative agreement has been reached, and Air Canada planes are now flying. How did we get here? Let's break it down. First, if you happen to be watching this from an airport, waiting for your much delayed Air Canada flight, sorry that you're in this situation. Put a comment below letting me know where you're at and how long you've been waiting. Okay, so the previous Air Canada CUPE agreement expired in March, and the staff have been working without a contract since that time. Bargaining had come to a halt, with one of the primary issues being unpaid work. That's right. Flight crew were paid from the time doors were closed until they were opened again, and they were not paid for onboarding or offboarding passengers, safety checks, and other pre- and post-flight duties. Now, apparently this is common in the airline industry, although numerous airlines around the world have already changed in this regard and are now paying staff for the hours that they work, and the industry trend seems to be in that direction. So the bargaining teams had reached an impasse, and then the workers voted to strike. The strike began on Friday last week. On Sunday, the Canada Industrial Relations Board, that's the CIRB, ordered Air Canada flight crews back to work and directed both sides to attend binding arbitration. Almost immediately, union representatives declared that workers would refuse to go back to work and that they were accepting that they may face fines or possibly even jail time by doing so. Very shortly after that, the bargaining committee and the corporate representatives actually did reach an agreement, which set the wheels in motion for the flight crews to return to work. And the airline has now agreed to pay flight crews for all of the hours that they are required to be at work. So flights are underway again, and it will take some time to return the many stranded passengers who have been stuck, many of them not knowing how or when they would be able to return home. And it's not 100% over yet. CUPE members will still need to vote on the new contract before it is actually ratified. According to the website, glassdoor.ca, Air Canada flight crew working full-time earn between $36,000 and $63,000 annually. That's starting level of $36,000 is not very far above poverty wages. And even the higher end, $63,000, barely meets the average livable wage cost in Canada. And of course, the average is based on average cost of living across the country. Just a reminder here that Air Canada flight crew generally based at airports, which of course are generally near large cities, which of course are associated with much higher than average cost of living. So with such low wages and unpaid work, up to 35 hours a month reportedly, it's not hard to be sympathetic with CUPE's position on the strike. I think, however, that one of the key things to look at here is the CIRB's demand that striking workers go back to work. The CIRB is an independent tribunal responsible for interpreting and administering various components of the Canada Labour Code. It has the authority to mandate workers back to work under two scenarios. One, if the strike is illegal, or two, if the Labour Minister invokes Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code. Section 107 exists for a work stoppage that is seen as an economic or security threat to national interest. It's basically a back-to-work order, a legal one, and usually involves binding arbitration. By invoking 107, the minister directs the CIRB to issue the order, which is what happened in the Air Canada case. Now, when a strike is not when a strike is not illegal and not a threat to national interest, then, in theory at least, only an act of Parliament can legislate striking employees back to work. This has happened before. Canada Post employees legislated in 2018, Port of Montreal employees legislated back to work in 2021, and numerous other times. Governments don't love to go through the legislative route because it's quite time-consuming. It becomes a long-running, politically charged media story. It consumes political capital, and it tends to polarize voters. So Section 107 is tempting because it's quick and easy, and most of the public don't really understand it. Plus, if it does all go sideways for the government, they always have the Minister of Labour as a scapegoat. The real challenge with Section 107 is that the legal definition of threat to national interest is a little bit nebulous, and governments can use 107 with essentially no checks, except for, of course, the courts. And the courts only come into play after it has already been invoked. So a union can fight a Section 107 order, but it's expensive. It takes time for courts to make the ruling. And the question remains about whether workers continue to strike while they're waiting and face fines and possibly jail time, or if they should go back to work, despite a potentially unjustified or illegal Section 107 order. Also, historically, no Canadian court has ever struck down or invalidated a Section 107 order. For me, all of this was a test of the Carney government, one that they failed, and one that they'll probably go unpunished for. Now, they failed, in my opinion, because they implemented the Section 107 order far too quickly. Had they sat on the sidelines for a while, the pressure to strike could have perhaps forced the two sides to find a compromise before the government stepped in. And they'll probably go unpunished because the two sides did find compromise, and they found it a very short time after the Section 107 was invoked. So that act by the Labour Minister through the CIRB was washed out of the news cycle almost immediately. There have also been accusations of conflict of interest on the part of the chair of the CIRB. That chairperson is Marissa Tremblay. Prior to her appointment as the chair in May of this year, she was a corporate senior law counsel at, you guessed it, Air Canada. Now, one can argue that a Section 107 directive comes from the Minister of Labour, and that decision is made outside of the CIRB. The directive is given to CIRB, who merely administers the order, in this case to Air Canada. So on paper, at least, one could argue that no conflict exists. But we all know that bureaucracy doesn't always work that way. There can be conversations, there can be backroom discussions, there can be off-the-record suggestions or advice. Recusal is as much about appearance of conflict of interest as it is about actual conflict of interest. I feel strongly that Tremblay should have recused herself. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So that's where we're at. Section 107 is still on the books, and this situation demonstrates how easily it could be misused by government, creating undue hardship on workers. And I have a final note for those of you who are part of a union and are perhaps wondering why this is important to you. First of all, almost 1/3 of working Canadians are either in a union or working under a collective agreement of some kind. So if you aren't, there's a good chance that some of your family and some of your friends are. More importantly, unions fight for wages, they fight for benefits, and they fight for working conditions for their members. And the results of their efforts impact all workers in Canada, because non-union jobs compete on the job market with union jobs. And so even if you aren't in a union, if you have a job, your wages, your benefits, your working conditions all improve when the union ones do. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe for more content like this. I really appreciate it.